The stars above Arthur Prime were calm once more. After the battle, the combined human-Valorian fleet returned to the planet. The citizens of Arthur Prime filled the streets, their voices singing songs of celebration, gratitude, and hope. Humans and Valorians walked together, sharing stories of courage, strategy, and loyalty that had saved the planet. For the Valorians, it was more than victory. It was a reaffirmation of a promise that had been made over a century ago, that loyalty and gratitude could cross time, space, and generations. On the capital's tallest plaza, Captain Elias Trent and Commander Terran Voss stood side by side. The plaza was lined with crystal lamps, each one shining brightly in honor of those who had fought, both human and Valorian. Children ran between the lights, carrying miniature flags of the Terran remnant and Arthur Prime, their laughter blending with the songs of elders. Terran turned to Elias, his silver eyes reflecting the lights. "You came from the stars for us even after so many years. Why do you do this?" Elias smiled gently. "Because you once trusted us when no one else could. Because loyalty is not measured in time. And because gratitude can change the fate of worlds." Terran nodded, understanding more than words could express. The lessons of the past battles, the courage of the humans, and the unity of their people had become a story that would live forever. Over the following days, humans and Valorians worked together to rebuild what had been damaged. But this time it was not just the physical structures. They strengthened alliances, shared knowledge, and exchanged technologies that emphasized peace, exploration, and protection rather than war. The humans had no desire to rule, take credit, or claim reward. Their philosophy was simple: help those in need, then continue forward. Their legacy was the trust and inspiration they left behind. Terran accompanied a group of young Valorian engineers to study the human ships. "Your people built these to last and to fight only when necessary," he observed. "There is wisdom in that," Elias chuckled. "Strength is important, yes, but even more important is knowing why you fight. Our weapons are nothing without purpose. Our courage is nothing without heart." For the Valorians, it was a lesson as valuable as any technology. The essence of humanity was not in power but in choice, in loyalty, kindness, and gratitude. The humans' departure from Arthur Prime was quiet yet profound. As they prepared to leave, the Valorian High Council offered them gifts: rare minerals, advanced technology, and land for their colonies. Captain Trent declined them all. Instead, he requested only one thing: a promise. "Promise that you will one day carry forward what we have taught you," he said. "If another world faces danger, if another species cries for help, answer their call. Help them as we helped you." Terran and the Council exchanged solemn glances. They understood the weight of the request. It was not about obedience. It was about the cycle of loyalty, courage, and gratitude continuing through generations. "Consider it done," Terran said softly. "We will honor your legacy." As the Terran remnant ships prepared to leave, the citizens of Arthur Prime gathered on the cliffs, watching the fleet rise into the sky. Children waved flags, and elders whispered prayers for safe travels. From the bridge of TSV Vigilant, Elias looked back at the planet. "They will thrive," he said quietly. "They have learned what it means to be loyal. They have learned the power of gratitude, and one day they will pass it on." Terran, standing beside him, felt a deep pride. "Your people came from the stars and reminded us of who we can be. That is a gift beyond victory." The humans did not linger. Their fleet glowed softly as it left the system, a trail of light across the darkness, leaving Arthur Prime with the memory of their courage and the promise of their loyalty. Years passed on Arthur Prime. The planet flourished under the guidance of the Valorians, who had seen humans fight for them. Side by side, they built schools where children learned about loyalty, bravery, and gratitude alongside science and art. Monuments to human heroes stood in every city, reminding the people that the courage of one generation could inspire countless more. Terran Voss, now older, told stories of the humans to new generations of Valorians. They came when all hope was lost. They fought without asking for reward. They showed us that loyalty and gratitude are not just words, and they are choices. And those choices can shape the fate of worlds. Children listened with wide eyes, imagining ships moving among the stars, and humans who risked everything for strangers. Those stories became legends, then lessons, then inspiration. In the far reaches of space, the Terran remnant continued their journey. They visited distant planets, aided civilizations in need, and silently observed the ripple of gratitude their actions created across the galaxy. They never stayed for recognition, never claimed power. Their satisfaction came from knowing that a single act of courage could echo through time. Captain Elias. Trent recorded a message for future generations. We are not heroes because of our strength. We are heroes because of our choices. When you see a world in need, stand with them. When you see courage in others, honor it. And always, always remember that loyalty and gratitude can shift the fate of worlds. Centuries later, the descendants of Arthur Prime faced challenges of their own. Pirates, rogue factions, and new threats emerged. Yet, in every difficult decision, they remembered the humans who once saved their planet. They acted with courage, helped others without expectation, and never forgot the simple truth. Loyalty and gratitude were more powerful than weapons. One day, a distant distress signal reached Arthur Prime, a small colony under threat far beyond their borders. Without hesitation, the Valorians sent aid, guided by the philosophy the humans had left behind. They whispered to one another as the ships departed, "As humans once helped us, we helped them." The cycle continued just as Elias and Captain Holt had hoped. The actions of one species born from loyalty and gratitude had created a legacy that spanned generations, shaping countless worlds and inspiring countless lives. Back in the distant reaches of the galaxy, faint signals of Valorian gratitude reached human ears. Somewhere in uncharted space, a young human navigator smiled as the message played. "Thank you for standing with us long ago. We remember, we honor, we will act as you once did." Elias Trent, now older and reflective, looked out at the stars. "It has worked," he said softly. "We fought, not for glory, not for reward, but for loyalty and gratitude. And it continues. The universe remembers what we do, and it acts in kind." He turned to his crew, pride in his eyes. "That is the greatest victory of all." As the humans sailed further into the stars, leaving trails of blue light in the void, Arthur Prime stood tall, a shining testament to courage, loyalty, and gratitude. Monuments, songs, and stories kept their memory alive. Children still gazed at the night sky, dreaming of humans who came from distant worlds, fought beside them, and left without asking for anything. And in the quiet moments, when the wind whispered through silver trees and over glowing rivers, the people of Arthur Prime could almost hear the soft words carried across space. Friends help friends. Loyalty is eternal. Gratitude can shift the fate of worlds. The lesson had been learned, the promise fulfilled, and the galaxy changed forever, not through conquest, but through the simple, powerful acts of courage, loyalty, and gratitude. The stars above Cathera shimmered like cold sparks scattered across the dark. From the planet's surface, they looked peaceful, tiny, beautiful lights in the endless night. But in orbit, those stars hid ships, hundreds of them, moving with purpose. The Scourge Raiders had come. For 3 weeks, they burned towns, stole resources, and left fear behind. The Cathari, a gentle reptilian race known for their skill in farming and crystal crafting, had no real army. Their world had always been a place of peace, and they believed the galaxy had long forgotten the language of conquest. They were wrong. High above the clouds, in the command spire of Cathera City, Elder Rintal stood at the tall window, his green scales catching the faint light of the fires below. He felt the weight of centuries of calm crumble beneath his claws. "We asked for help," he said quietly. "The Alliance promised protection." "They sent words, not ships," replied his advisor, her voice trembling. "No one will come, Elder, not for us." Rintal closed his eyes. He remembered long ago when another small ship had fallen from the sky, a Terran research vessel. The humans inside had been weak, starving, far from their home, yet the Cathari had sheltered them, fed them, and repaired their strange metal craft. Those humans had bowed deeply before leaving, promising, "If ever you call for help, we will answer." That was 50 years ago. Too long for hope to survive. Far across the void, near the glowing rim of Orion's Reach, Captain Alaric Vance sat in the quiet of his ship's command deck, staring at a blinking distress signal. It came in through static, ancient codes, old Cathari frequency, but the message was clear. "This is Cathara 4. We are under attack. Anyone who hears this, please help us. Most captains would have ignored it. The Scourge were notorious, and the Cathari had no military value. But Alaric didn't turn away. His gray eyes narrowed and he leaned forward. "That's a Cathari call sign," he said softly. Beside him, his first officer, Lieutenant Mara Kane, frowned. "Sir, those coordinates are deep inside Scourge territory. No support fleets, no backup. If we go alone." "I know." Alaric straightened. "But 50 years ago, Cathara saved our people. My grandfather was on that research ship. He told me the Cathari treated them like family." Mara blinked. "So you're saying—"
"We're going?"
"I'm saying," Alaric replied, "we owe a debt. And humans repay loyalty with loyalty." He turned to the crew. "Plot a course for Cathara 4. All ships in formation. The bridge filled with movement. Pilots strapped in. Engineers checked reactor levels. And the ship's engines hummed like a living heart." Outside, 6 Terran vessels, small compared to the massive warships of the Scourge, angled their bows toward the distant star. No one hesitated. They knew their captain's words meant something more than orders. Humanity had built its place among the stars not with wealth but with trust. When others walked away, humans stayed. As the fleet leapt into faster-than-light travel, space stretched into rivers of silver light. Alaric looked out through the viewport, thinking of his grandfather's story, the tale of kindness that had once saved a few lost Terrans. He whispered to himself, "We promised we'd return someday. Promises matter." The journey took 3 days. On the third, alarms screamed across the deck as the fleet dropped into normal space near Cathara. The scene before them was chaos. Flames licked the planet's upper atmosphere. Scourge ships, black, angular, and armed with plasma cannons, hung over the world like vultures. Hundreds of them. Mara stared in disbelief. "There must be 100 warships out there, and we have 6, Alaric said calmly. "Good. That'll make the math easier." The crew gave nervous smiles, but they knew him well enough to understand. He wasn't joking to boast. He was calming them. "Broadcast to the Cathari," he ordered. "Tell them the Terran Defense Fleet has arrived." Mara hesitated. "Sir, they'll think we're mad." "They already do," he said with a small smile. "Now let's give them a reason to remember it." Down on the surface, Elder Rin Tal received the message through the battered communication center. When he heard the words Terran Defense Fleet, his old heart nearly stopped. "Humans?" he whispered. "After all this time?" "They can't stand against the Scourge," his advisor said. "They'll die for nothing," Rin shook his head. "No, not for nothing. For loyalty." Above the planet, Alaric's ships moved into formation. The TSS Vigilant, his flagship, led the line. Each vessel carried minimal weapons but advanced shields and maneuver thrusters. The Scourge commander, a massive being named Korzak, laughed when he saw the Terran fleet appear. "Tiny ships," he growled over open channel. "You come to die for reptiles?" Alaric's calm voice answered, "No, we come to repay a debt." Then, without warning, the Terran fleet attacked. The first strike came from behind the Scourge line. Using data gathered from old exploration maps, Alaric had plotted a course through the planet's magnetic field that allowed his ships to drop in unseen for a few seconds. It was a dangerous maneuver, but humans were known for risky brilliance. Laser fire cut across space. 2 Scourge cruisers exploded before they even turned their guns. The surprise broke their perfect formation. The Scourge responded with fury, unleashing plasma storms that painted the sky red. The Vigilant shook violently as energy waves slammed into its hull. "Shields holding at 70%, shouted Mara. "Hold the line," Alaric said. "Push them toward the upper orbit. Make them chase us." As the smaller Terran ships darted between massive Scourge battleships, they moved like insects around giants, fast, unpredictable, impossible to pin down. Where one ship seemed cornered, another appeared behind the enemy. They shared no fear, no retreat. To the Cathari below, the night sky became a living storm of light. Children watched in awe as streaks of fire danced between stars. To them it looked as if the humans were fighting not with machines, but with the very spirit of courage itself. Hours turned into a full day. The Terran ships were damaged, but their tactics confused the enemy. Every time the Scourge tried to regroup, another explosion tore through their flank. Alaric's crew worked in near silence, every command sharp, every motion precise. At one point, a young pilot named Eli Tan called through the comm. Captain, I can block their carrier, but I'll be cut off. Alaric answered quietly. Do what you have to, Lieutenant. We'll find you. Eli smiled, though no one could see it. Aye, sir. Moments later, his ship dove straight into the Scourge carrier's line of fire. He released his remaining torpedoes at point-blank range. The carrier erupted in a wave of orange light. Eli's ship vanished with it. The bridge fell silent. No one spoke. Alaric bowed his head for a moment, then lifted it again. Mark his sacrifice, he said. He fought for loyalty. We keep fighting for him. By the end of the second day, the Terran fleet had destroyed nearly 20 enemy ships, but they were running low on fuel and ammunition. The Vigilant's hull was scarred, its shields flickering. Mara turned to Alaric. Sir, we can't hold much longer. We've proven our point. Maybe it's time to retreat. Alaric's voice was soft but firm. We don't leave halfway. The Cathari believed in kindness when no one else did. Now we believe in them. He stood, hands clasped behind his back, watching the burning world below. Tell the fleet, prepare for another run. Outside, the Scourge ships regrouped, circling like wolves around their prey. Yet Alaric didn't waver. He knew the odds, but he also knew something deeper, that courage spreads faster than fear. On the surface, the Cathari people gathered in the city square, watching the battle through holoscreens. They had expected the humans to flee, yet hour after hour they stayed. An old farmer whispered, They fight for us. A child asked, But why? The elder smiled faintly. Because long ago we showed them kindness, and humans never forget kindness. That night, as the sky burned with trails of light, the Cathari no longer prayed for rescue. They prayed for the strength to deserve it. Back in orbit, Alaric's ship trembled from another blast. Smoke filled the bridge. Engines failing! Shouted the engineer. Alaric looked around at his crew, exhausted, bloodied, but alive. Then we fight where we stand, he said calmly. As long as one Terran ship breathes, Cathara is not alone. His words spread through the fleet. Across damaged decks and dark corridors, humans gritted their teeth and pushed on. Outside, the stars blazed brighter, reflecting the fire and iron of the Terran heart. And somewhere deep in space, unseen by both sides, other eyes were watching, alien captains, traders, and explorers who had intercepted the battle feed. They watched in silence as humanity, a young species barely known, fought for a world that was not their own. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy remembered what loyalty looked like. The second sunrise over Cathara 4 came with a sky full of fire. The Scourge Raiders had gathered more ships overnight, dark silhouettes crowding the upper orbit. To anyone looking up from the planet's surface, it seemed as if the stars themselves had turned hostile. But one thing still glowed bright among the shadows: the 6 Terran ships, holding position like stubborn sparks refusing to die. Inside the flagship TSS Vigilant, Captain Alaric Vance stood silently at the main viewport. His reflection looked pale in the light of burning debris drifting across space. Around him, his bridge crew worked without rest, every movement practiced, every command crisp. The smell of burned circuits filled the air. Status report, Alaric said calmly. Lieutenant Mara Kane glanced at her console. Shields at 30%, sir. The Resolute lost one engine. The Ardent has life support failure, but they're still fighting. Alaric nodded once. And the Scourge? They've regrouped into 2 strike formations. They're planning to surround us, he smiled faintly. Let them try. His crew exchanged weary looks but trusted his tone. Every time Alaric said those words, it meant he had a plan. Down on Cathara's surface, the Cathari people crowded around the Crystal View towers, watching the live transmission of the battle. The humans' courage had become a spark of hope in a dark hour. No one expected them to last even one night. Now 2 sunrises later, they were still fighting. Elder Rin Tal stood among the watchers. His heart trembled each time a human ship flared under fire, but pride replaced fear whenever the Terrans countered with unexpected strikes. They fight as if our world is their own, he murmured. Beside him, a young Cathari soldier said quietly, If they can fight, we can fight too. Rin looked at him, then at the crowds forming behind them, miners, farmers, artisans. For centuries, Cathari had forgotten war, but the sight of humans refusing to fall awakened something long lost. The elder's voice was soft but firm. Prepare our defense grids. If they fight for us, we will not watch from shadows. Above, Alaric's fleet repositioned behind the planet's largest moon, using its gravity to slingshot into a higher orbit. It was a risky maneuver. If they miscalculated, they would crash into the moon itself. But humans had a habit of turning risk into opportunity. On my mark, Alaric said quietly. Engage reverse thrust. The ships pivoted as one, their engines roaring. The sudden acceleration threw everyone against their harnesses. The moon's pale surface flashed beneath them like a wave of ice. When the Terran fleet burst from the far side, they emerged directly behind the Scourge's second formation. Before the enemy could react, the Vigilant fired all remaining torpedoes. The Ardent and Resolute followed with pulse cannons. Explosions rippled through the blackness, bright enough to light the planet's night side. Direct hits, Mara shouted. The bridge erupted with brief cheers. But Alaric raised a hand. Stay focused. We're not done yet. The Scourge fleet recovered quickly. Their commander, Cor Jacques, snarled as his tactical screens filled with red warnings. These humans. They fight like animals. A younger Scourge officer hesitated. They should have retreated by now. Jacques slammed his clawed hand on the console. Then make them regret their bravery. Burn their ships to dust. The Scourge vessels turned as one and unleashed their full might. Beams of searing plasma lit the void, carving through debris and striking the Ardent broadside. Its hull broke apart, scattering glowing fragments into the darkness. Mara's voice cracked. We lost the Ardent. Alaric closed his eyes for a second. They did their part, he said softly. Now it's our turn. Hours passed in endless fire and silence. The Terran ships dodged, weaved, and countered, using every scrap of debris as cover. It was not a battle of power, but of endurance. And humans had plenty of that. At one point, the Resolute's captain, Commander Hayes, opened a private channel to Alaric. Captain, he said, his voice steady despite the static. I think we've bought the Cathari enough time. Maybe it's time to cut and run. Alaric looked at the flickering image of his old friend. You can retreat if you want, Hayes, but I can't. Hayes chuckled softly. You always were stubborn, Alaric smiled. No, just loyal. There was a pause. Then Hayes nodded. Then let's finish this together. The channel cut and the Resolute dove straight into the thickest part of the enemy line. Its engines flared bright as it unleashed one final barrage. When it exploded, it took 3 Scourge warships with it. The shockwave rattled the Vigilant. Mara wiped a tear from her eye but kept working. That brings their count down, sir. Maybe 20 left. Alaric's tone was steady. That's 20 too many. In the communication chamber, Alaric activated a planetary broadcast. His image appeared across Cathera's cities, seen by millions. His uniform was torn, his face streaked with smoke, but his voice was calm. This is Captain Alaric Vance of the Terran Defense Fleet, he began. 50 years ago, your people saved my grandfather's crew. You gave them food, water, and shelter when no one else cared. Today, humanity repays that kindness. We may not survive this battle, but we will not leave until your skies are free. He looked straight into the lens as if addressing every being who doubted human loyalty. You showed us what compassion means. Now let us show you what gratitude looks like. The broadcast ended. On the surface, silence followed and then cheers. Cathari from every city shouted his name not as a stranger but as a brother of their world. In the orbiting fleet, morale surged again. Even damaged ships answered Alaric's rally with renewed purpose. Pilots who could barely keep their craft stable pushed forward. Sir, Mara said. Incoming transmission from multiple systems. Alaric frowned. From who? Various independent ships. Traders, mercenaries, even a few Alliance patrols. They've seen our battle feed. They're asking if we need help. Alaric's heart lifted. Patch them through. One by one, alien captains appeared on the holo screen. An Akari with fur like silver flame spoke first. Terran captain, your people fight with honor. We will stand with you. Then came a crystalline Nith commander, her voice echoing like music. Our council forbids us from choosing sides. But seeing your loyalty, our council can wait. Finally, a cold gray figure of the Vorn Imperium appeared. We once called humanity reckless. We were wrong. We are sending ships. Alaric couldn't hide his smile. Welcome to the fight. By the 3rd day, the tide began to turn. Alien reinforcements emerged from hyperspace in waves. The Scourge, once confident, now faced fleets from 6 systems, brought together by one human promise. The battle stretched across the orbit, fire and metal weaving into a storm of courage. On board the Vigilant, alarms still blared, but hope had replaced despair. Mara turned from her screen. Sir, Cor Jacques' flagship is pulling back. Alaric nodded slowly. He knows he's beaten, but we don't end this until Cathara is safe. He gave the final order. All ships concentrate fire. The combined fleet unleashed a single devastating barrage. Beams of light, torpedoes, and plasma shells crossed space like a waterfall of energy. When the storm cleared, the Scourge flagship was gone, reduced to ash drifting in the starlight. Silence filled the bridge. The battle was over. Mara's voice broke the stillness. Sir, we did it. Alaric sank into his chair, exhausted but smiling. No, he said softly, we did it. Every one of us. Humans, Cathari, and all who stood beside us. The crew cheered quietly, not with wild shouts, but with relief, pride, and peace below. The Cathari watched as the last of the Scourge ships vanished from orbit. The skies cleared. The fires dimmed. For the first time in weeks, the dawn rose over a free world. Elder Rin Tal placed his clawed hand over his chest, a Cathari gesture of deep respect. They saved us, he whispered. Not for gain, but for loyalty. A young child beside him asked, will they go now? Rin smiled gently. Perhaps, but their spirit will stay here forever. As the Vigilant descended slowly through the upper clouds, the Cathari cities sent light signals across the surface, thousands of glowing towers blinking in unison. It was their way of saying thank you. Mara watched through the viewport, eyes wide. They're lighting the entire planet. Alaric's voice was soft. Gratitude speaks without words. He turned to the crew. Begin repairs. We'll stay in orbit until we're sure they're safe. And for the first time in days, the weary captain allowed himself to rest. Outside, the stars that once burned with war now shone quietly, reflected on the hulls of Terran and Cathari ships alike. Far away, across the galaxy, other worlds watched the recordings of the Battle of Cathara. They didn't just see victory. They saw what it meant to be human. Loyalty had brought the Terrans there. Gratitude had united the stars, and the galaxy would never forget either. The battle above Cathara Fear had raged for nearly 3 days, yet the Terran fleet was still standing. Their ships were battered, engines groaning, shields flickering like dying stars. Every crew member bore the marks of exhaustion. Hands blistered, muscles strained, eyes red from hours of tension, but none wavered. Loyalty, that unspoken force, held them together more strongly than any weapon. Captain Alaric Vance sat on the command deck of the TSS Vigilant, staring at the starlit battlefield. The Scourge were relentless, but something unusual was happening. Ships from distant corners of the galaxy, ones not bound by treaties or politics, had begun to appear. At first it was a single cruiser from the feline Akari, its sleek silhouette cutting through the darkness. Then another crystalline ninth vessels following, shimmering like living gemstones. Even a cold gray fleet from the Vorn Imperium joined, silent and precise. Alaric leaned back in his chair. They're coming, he murmured. Not because they have to, but because they want to. Lieutenant Mara Kane stared at him. Why would they help us? We're just humans. Alaric shook his head slowly. Because we fight for what is right, Mara. Loyalty, courage, gratitude. Those things are stronger than fear or politics. The galaxy sees it now. Below, in the ruined cities of Cathara, Elder Rintal watched the sky with disbelief. Ships of various species flitted between Terran vessels and the Scourge joining the battle. It is impossible, whispered one Cathari soldier. How did they know we needed help? Rintal smiled, a mixture of pride and awe. Not impossible, he said. Humans never fight for themselves alone. They fight for those who showed them kindness. That is loyalty. Around him, Cathari citizens, farmers, teachers, children looked up and cheered. The humans' courage had inspired not only allies in space but also the hearts of an entire planet. The battle intensified. The Scourge realized too late that they were surrounded. Alaric's strategy was simple. Divide and confuse the enemy while waiting for reinforcements to arrive. But simple did not mean easy. His fleet, already stretched thin, had to execute dangerous maneuvers with precision. Captain, Mara said, pointing at the screen, Scourge flagship is targeting the Cathari orbital city. If it falls, we lose thousands of lives instantly. Alaric's gray eyes narrowed. Set course intercept. We'll give them no victory today. The Terran ships, though fewer in number, moved as one. Pilots who were close to collapse found a second wind. Every human aboard every ship knew the stakes. This was not just a battle for survival. It was a battle for honor, for friendship, for every promise ever made. Moments later, the Vigilant engaged the massive Scourge flagship. The ship's hull blazed with energy from hundreds of weapons, but Alaric's experience in risky maneuvers proved decisive. Using the gravitational pull of a nearby moon, the Vigilant swung in a wide arc and struck the flagship's weak points with concentrated plasma volleys. Explosions tore through the enemy vessel, sending shards of metal into the void. The Scourge flagship shuddered, alarms blaring, and retreated in disarray. On the bridge, the Terran crew erupted in cheers, though fatigue weighed heavily on every one of them. Mara smiled despite the smoke and sparks surrounding her console. "They're retreating. They're really retreating." Alaric remained calm. "Temporary victory. Stay focused. Others still remain." Meanwhile, the newly arrived alien fleets proved invaluable. The Akari deployed fast attack ships, weaving through Scourge formations like predators in the night. The Nith used their crystalline shields to block concentrated enemy fire, protecting Terran vessels and Cathari cities alike. Even the stoic Vorn Imperium ships, cold and precise, executed maneuvers that no other species could match, cutting enemy supply lines and forcing Scourge reinforcements into retreat. For the first time, the Scourge began to realize that this was not just a fight against humans. They were fighting against something far larger, the idea that loyalty and gratitude could unite entire species. That belief, simple as it seemed, was more dangerous than any weapon. Back on Cathara's surface, the Cathari had begun to mobilize. Inspired by the humans' courage, they repaired defensive turrets and energy shields at a pace previously thought impossible. Farmers became soldiers, technicians became engineers. The entire planet worked as one to defend the world that had once protected humans. A young Cathari girl, barely old enough to walk, held a small crystal communicator and shouted, "Thank you, humans." Her voice carried through the network, reaching the ships above. Though she did not understand the complexities of war, she understood loyalty. And in her innocent cry, Alaric and his crew felt the weight of their mission and its meaning. Alaric activated the ship-wide intercom. "Listen up," he said, his voice calm but firm. "This battle is not over, but remember why we fight. Remember what brought us here. We are not just defending Cathara. We are defending every act of kindness ever given to us, every life that believed in trust. Today we honor that trust." Across the fleet, humans, aliens, and even some Cathari orbital units listened. Their hands tightened on controls, claws on levers, eyes focused. Loyalty was no longer just a human trait. It had become a force the galaxy could not ignore. The Scourge regrouped one last time, forming a massive wedge designed to crush all defenders. But the combined fleets were ready. Alaric coordinated with alien commanders through a secure channel. His voice, calm but authoritative, echoed across species. "Left flank, hold steady. Right flank, intercept the wedge. Middle line, target the command ship." Timing is everything. The plan unfolded with precision. Even though they had never fought together before, the humans' clarity and confidence inspired trust. The alien fleets followed the instructions without hesitation. Every strike was synchronized. Every maneuver executed flawlessly. The wedge faltered under the coordinated assault. The Scourge flagship, already damaged, could not recover. Smaller ships panicked, some fleeing, others surrendering. It was a turning point, a moment that would be remembered for generations. On the Vigilant, Alaric exhaled slowly. "Hold fire," he commanded. The Scourge have no formation left. "Target only those still posing a threat." Mara looked at him awed. We actually did it." Alaric shook his head slightly. "We didn't do it alone. Look around you. Every ship here, human and alien alike, proved that loyalty can inspire courage beyond reason. Outside, the stars themselves seemed to shimmer differently, as if the universe acknowledged the unity of so many beings fighting together. For the first time, the Terran fleet felt that victory was more than just survival. It was a testament to something greater. Back on Cathara 4, Elder Rintal addressed the people. His voice carried over the planet-wide network, amplified through speakers and holoprojectors. "People of Cathara," he said, voice steady. "Today, we have seen what true loyalty looks like. Humans, a young race among the stars, have reminded us that courage is not measured by numbers or weapons, but by the strength of the heart. They fought for us because we once showed them kindness. Today we will honor that courage, not with fear but with gratitude. Children clapped, adults cheered, and soldiers saluted the skies. The Cathari people had witnessed humanity's loyalty firsthand, and it left an indelible mark on every soul. As the fleets began to regroup and tend to damages, Alaric addressed his own crew privately. "This is not the end," he said quietly, "but it is the moment that will define us. We fought not for glory or reward. We fought because we promised to repay kindness. Loyalty brought us here. Gratitude will carry this world forward." Mara nodded, wiping sweat and soot from her brow. "Captain, they will remember us." Alaric looked at the stars, distant and endless. "Not just us. All who stood with us. Today the galaxy saw what humanity is capable of. And so, as Kethera 4's surface slowly began to recover from the chaos, the story of the humans' loyalty spread. Across the galaxy, from small colonies to grand capitals, beings of every species shared the tale. A few humans, outnumbered and battered, had chosen to fight not for profit or fear, but for the memory of a kindness 50 years past. Loyalty had brought humans to the edge of destruction, and their courage had reshaped the battle itself. Gratitude, simple and pure, had begun to ripple across species, uniting allies who had never met, inspiring courage in those who had forgotten it, and reminding the galaxy that even a single act of kindness could echo across the stars. The fires of battle had finally faded from the skies above Cathara 4. Smoke drifted slowly into space, and shards of destroyed ships glimmered faintly like fallen stars. The Scourge Raiders had fled, broken and scattered. The Terran fleet, battered but unbowed, drifted in orbit, engines humming, shields sparking, and crews exhausted but alive. Captain Alaric Vance sat in the Vigilance command chair, staring at the calm that followed chaos. For the first time in days, he allowed himself a moment to breathe. Around him, his crew checked systems, repaired damaged hulls, and quietly thanked the universe for survival. "Sir," Lieutenant Mara Kane said softly, approaching his side. "The Cathari, they're preparing something. Signals, lights, hundreds of them." Alaric raised an eyebrow. "Show me." Through the ship's main viewport, the planet's surface was a stunning display. Thousands of towers, temples, and buildings glowed in synchronized light, blinking in patterns of gratitude. Citizens waved from the streets. Children held crystals that reflected the sun's first rays. Even from orbit, the message was clear. "Thank you." Alaric felt a warmth he could not explain. "They don't need words," he said. This is gratitude." Below, Elder Rin Tal stood among the Cathari people, watching the human ships. His scales glimmered in the early sunlight as he spoke to the gathered crowd. "Our world was saved," he said, voice steady and proud, not by strength alone, but by loyalty. "Humans remember kindness. Today they gave their courage to us. Tomorrow, we repay it. Not with gold, not with riches, but with honor and gratitude." The Cathari citizens, who had spent weeks fearing destruction, now felt hope blooming like the first flowers of spring. Artisans, farmers, and children worked side by side, preparing gifts of crystal, food, and art to honor their unexpected friends. A young Cathari boy, barely tall enough to lift a light communicator, ran up to the elder. "Elder, when will the humans see our thanks?" Rin placed a clawed hand gently on the boy's shoulder. "Soon, little one. They will see and they will understand. But more importantly, they will know that their loyalty inspired our hearts." On board the Vigilant, Alaric activated a secure communication channel with the Cathari leadership. Elder Rin's face appeared on the screen, etched with scales and wisdom. "Captain Vance," Rin said, his voice solemn yet joyful, "you and your people risked everything for us. We are beyond words. Know that Cathara 4 will always remember this day." Alaric smiled faintly. "We did what we promised, Elder. Loyalty is not measured by time, it is measured by action. Today we acted. You do not owe us anything." Rin's eyes glimmered. "You have given us more than life. You have given us courage to rise again, and a lesson for generations. Loyalty and gratitude are treasures that outlast any star." Elsewhere on the planet, children played with small Terran drones left in orbit as part of the relief effort. Farmers rebuilt farms destroyed in the attack, while artisans worked to repair shattered crystal towers. Everywhere there was movement, not fear, but life. A Cathari engineer approached a group of human mechanics working to repair a damaged Terran scout ship. She handed them a small polished crystal. "This is for you," she said. "A piece of Cathara here. May it remind you that we remember your courage." One of the Terran mechanics, a young woman named Lena Crow, held the crystal in her hands, eyes wide. "We came to fight, not to be thanked, but this feels right." Alaric, who had been observing from a short distance, nodded. "It is not about thanks. It is about knowing that what we do matters, that loyalty, kindness, and courage have meaning." The Terran fleet began minor repairs in orbit using Cathari facilities to patch hulls and recharge power cores. Despite exhaustion, the humans worked with quiet efficiency. No celebrations, no medals. Just duty, honor, and the satisfaction of a promise kept. Mara approached Alaric on the bridge. "Captain, the Cathari are trying to offer us more than thanks. They want to form alliances, trade agreements, even knowledge exchanges." Alaric considered for a moment. "We didn't fight for rewards," he said. "But they deserve to learn that loyalty and gratitude do more than heal wounds. They build bridges across stars. Accept their gifts. Learn from them. And remember that kindness, once given, can grow stronger than any weapon." From orbit, the fleet watched as Cathara 4 slowly returned to normal. Fires extinguished. Buildings repaired. Children laughed in the streets. And above it all, the human ships hovered. Not as conquerors, not as saviors, but as friends who had kept a promise. Alaric activated the intercom for all fleet members. "Today we have seen the result of loyalty. Not the flashy explosions, not the victories in battle. The true result is here below us. A world that lives, that rebuilds, that remembers. Never forget this moment. This is why humans do what they do. We honor those who honor us, and in turn we inspire hope." The crew, weary but proud, silently nodded. They had learned once again that loyalty was more powerful than fear, and gratitude more enduring than fear or hatred. In the following days, the Cathari began to extend their appreciation beyond mere words. Their scientists shared new technologies with the Terran engineers, crystals that stored energy far more efficiently than human batteries. Artisans created statues and murals celebrating the battle, featuring the Terran ships and crews. Even children drew pictures of humans as heroes, not invincible, but brave, loyal, and kind. Alaric walked among the Cathari in the city's central plaza. Elder Rintal joined him, guiding him through crowds who bowed in respect. "Captain," Rin said, "you fought not for fame, but because it was right. The galaxy has watched, and your actions will echo for generations." Alaric smiled faintly. "It is not about the galaxy. It is about one promise kept, one world saved, one debt honored." A group of children ran up, offering small gifts. Flowers, crystal trinkets, drawings. One held a hollow message she had prepared. When activated, it played a simple message. "To the humans who came for us, your courage showed us hope. Your loyalty saved our homes. We are forever grateful." Alaric felt a lump in his throat. This is more than we could ask for," he whispered to Mara. She nodded, "And more than we expected." Word of the Battle of Catharaver spread quickly. Across nearby systems, news feeds, trade routes, and even some alliance channels broadcast the story. Humans, few in number, had stood against impossible odds to protect a race that had once helped them. The moral of the story was not military might, it was loyalty and gratitude. Planets that had remained neutral began sending aid to Cathara 4. Merchant fleets volunteered to help rebuild. Academies opened their archives to study human tactics and courage. Even species that had previously distrusted humans began to reconsider their prejudices. Alaric watched these developments from the vigilant, silent, and thoughtful. He had never fought for recognition, but it became clear that one simple act of loyalty could ripple through the stars, inspiring more than any speech, treaty, or law. Weeks later, the humans prepared to leave orbit. The fleet, now repaired and refueled, gathered for a final briefing. Alaric addressed his crew. "We did not come here seeking gratitude. We came to honor a promise, but we leave having witnessed its power. Loyalty inspires courage. Courage inspires hope. Hope inspires action. Remember this. Everywhere we go, let our actions reflect that. Humanity's strength is not just our technology, not our ships, not even our numbers. It is our loyalty, our honor, and our gratitude." The fleet cheered, though quietly, respectful of the lessons they had learned and the bonds they had forged. On the surface, Elder Rintal and the Cathari watched the Terran fleet lift off. Ships glimmered against the blue planet, engines leaving soft trails like gentle brushstrokes across the sky. Children waved. Soldiers saluted. Artists and scholars documented everything. Rin spoke softly, almost to himself. They came for loyalty and left us with hope. Their gratitude is not ours alone. It belongs to the galaxy now. The Cathari knew they would never forget the humans. They had learned that loyalty and gratitude could reshape worlds, not with weapons, but with courage and heart. And somewhere in the stars, Captain Alaric Vance allowed himself a rare smile, knowing that one promise, one act of loyalty, had changed far more than just a battle. It had changed the hearts of an entire world and inspired hope across a galaxy.